Hello. Welcome back to Misery. Just getting my stream set up now. But welcome. We're going to be drawing our villain again because last stream did not go very smoothly. But now I have a direct connection with an Ethernet cable, so I shouldn't have any signal drop whatsoever. That is the hope. There we go. That looks right about where we left off. I'll do a quick little recap. Oh, good. I'm glad the sound is good. I'll do a quick little recap on this guy, and then we'll dive into some costume design. This guy is our villain. He's got a cane, which we'll also design hopefully today. He's got a fancy coat. We're going for something kind of a blend between, I guess it would be 17th century and 18th century fashion. Yes, so vests, jackets with lots of buttons. And there are subtle differences between the two eras I'm learning as I'm getting up my reference images. So that's been really fun to learn. Because overall, the suit has not changed that much, but there are a few distinct like moments in, I guess, sort of the evolution of the suit. But this guy, he's older. He's been around a while. Yeah, here we go. Here's another image I can put in there. These are all the references. But check out this guy. So this is sort of 1800s historical menswear. And this, I don't know what this is called. I guess an ascot-ish thing. This like rumply neck thing is what I'm going for. But I suppose I'm going for more of a 17th century style coat because I'm noticing on these types of coats, I do like the coat tails on this. That makes it easier for writing and getting along, and generally I think it looks fancier. But I'm not a huge fan of this like harsh cutoff in the front. I wanted more of a sweeping motion. Because there are other longer coats of this century, like this guy here, but it doesn't have the sort of end tails that I want. So we're gonna blend a little bit of fashion. Which I don't know. Maybe that's something that you're not supposed to do, but it's fantasy, you know. Oh, I just found another great reference. I'll pull up. Here we go. Check out this guy. So this is one that has the sort of swoop that I like, but it also doesn't have the end tail, so I'm kind of going for a blend between the two. But this also has that sort of like ruffly thing. It also has a bow tie. It's kind of a lot. The one distinction I am making to like modernize it is the sort of early 18th century, late and throughout the 17th century as well. I guess it would be 18th and 19th century. My bad. I'm thinking 1700 and 1800s. But I forgot that you're supposed to it's one number ahead. But the earlier ones have this sort of frill on the cuffs as well, and I don't really want that because I want him to be more practical. So here you can see they still have like a nice ruffle thing up top, but down by the wrists it is now a clean cut off. It is just a button-up shirt underneath that. So not as frilly, because he's not a frilly villain. He's a very practical kind of guy. I am not going to have a wig for him. He might have a hat on occasion, but overall I kind of want to keep his head the way it is because I liked this sort of shape that I had going for him. Almost pharaoh headdress shaped. But I like the angles that I was getting with that. But I want to go into a little more detail with the clothing because we can. And I'm looking at this vest now and I'm realizing it really doesn't make sense to me. So I'm going to actually go in and fix this a little bit. I do like the 6 buttons. I think the 6 buttons makes sense. But this angle really doesn't make sense for the neckline. Really, this should be higher. This V should be up a bit. And I gotta figure out what brush I was using before, too. That looks right. Okay, so let's extend that up a bit. Because his chest is, like, here, like... So the V of the vest should come up a little further than that. I think the idea that I was going for was that it had a bit more of an angle. But we don't want to do it too much of an angle because then it's not going to look right. So something like that maybe. And then we can space these buttons out a bit better. Because so far it looks like 6 buttons is pretty typical. And then the vest will sort of hang over the pants. Having the vest visible under the coat is totally acceptable in this. I see that on a lot of my references. So I'm not going to worry if it pokes out a bit. So something like that. We've got our nice angled bottom. I don't do a lot of like fashion design with my characters, but I really should because I think it's really fascinating. And that's just sort of the part of world building that I like is just learning about new things. So let me look at my references. Let's look at some vests. Something else I've noticed between the sort of like 1700s and then 1800s is, and like comparing this to like American history, like you kind of picture this guy here in the purple as sort of the George Washington era, like these like short, I don't know, maybe the white's better to highlight. Yeah, these sort of short pants with the stockings is very much the earlier stuff, and then it sort of transitioned into more pants. So we're gonna go with pants. We'll give him a nice shoe, a nice heeled shoe. I am gonna make the pants a bit skinnier than the traditional pants we see here. I've seen a lot of pants that have this sort of like baggy side to it, but that's not really the silhouette that I want for him. Although maybe it wouldn't look bad. I want him to be very, very fitted. Kind of that skinny as a pencil look. But I'm trying to look for collars on vests right now. So we've got the little flaps coming out here. Maybe that's what I was doing, because the vest V really does just kind of do that. I think that must be what I was doing before. I was drawing out the flaps of the vest. And having it more angled. I'm just gonna look up a couple more vests just to see what kind of shapes we're dealing with, because I know there's a couple of variants. There's ones that kind of have this like smooth transition. That's not really what I want, because he's a villain and I want more angles on him. We've got the sort of like triangle that goes into the next part. That would be fine. I'm trying to see if there's any historic ones that are like really, really angled or fancy. There's also some weird vests that like the neckline comes like down like that, and then you get to see the like buttons of your shirt all the way down. It's a weird one. I don't really like it for this guy. But it is a fashion choice. Yeah, we've got kind of classic triangles with the little cuts in them. Trying to see if there's one that maybe has a bit more of an angle to it. I see one that's kind of interesting. I'm going to try it and see if we like it. But there's one that sort of comes up further and then angles in. I guess it would be angled straight and then comes up again like that. I don't mind that. That's kind of nice. That's sort of a pointy shape. Give it a little bit of depth. Make it a little bit thicker too. And the neckwear. I need to know, I want to know what this thing is called. And I need to find a good reference of it, but like the fancy like ruffly thing that kind of billows. I like the look of that, but I want to be able to I want to figure out how it's shaped so that I can draw it accurately. I guess it would be more 1700s. It's almost like a little cloth scarf, and then there's like lots of different ways to tie it, but I know there's one. I know there's frilly ones. There's a frilly one. Ooh, okay. Here is sort of what I'm talking about. I'll copy it in here so you guys can see it. This is sort of what I'm talking about. This is a nice illustration. Something along... This isn't exactly what I'm looking for, but it's something along the lines of, like, this thing up here and whatever that is, whatever is happening in between the vest. Jabot collar, maybe? Yeah, that's pretty close. That might be it. Yeah, I don't know how to pronounce that. Jabot? I feel like Jabot makes more sense. Ooh, here we go. Jabot collar sketch. This is what I want. This is what I'm looking for. Let me get a good reference and I'll put it up there. The sketches of these things are much more clear than the photos, because I feel like we don't really get a sense of exactly what's going on unless it's like sketched out flat. Copy that. Yeah, check out this guy. And also, maybe this guy? Yeah. This is the sort of thing I'm looking for. I've seen a few in here where the top buttons of the vest are actually parted and you get to see more of the ruffles, but I feel like he would be a bit more uptight. I feel like his fashion sense has kind of been modified so that he keeps things very close to the chest. I don't want him to be super open. Like his actual like suit jacket can be open. That's fine, because then we can see the vest. But I almost feel like this is the right way to go, but with maybe one more layer. Because it's sort of it's just a collar, and then connected to it is like just like 3 layers of cloth that are cut. I'm assuming they're cut sort of like that, so that when they fold, they sort of fold in the middle. sort of like that, and then as you move those lines up, it creates that illusion of many, many layers, but it's really just one. One folded layer. So that's, I guess that's sort of the secret to drawing it, huh? Is sort of making the end squiggle first. Very cool. Let's give it a shot. Because it would overlap on top a bit, which is fine. And they don't have to be completely even. And it doesn't really even have to be sticking out that much. We can have it sort of wrinkle in a way where it just barely covers. Again, I want them to feel a little uptight. The other thing I need to draw is the collar up here. So I do like a sort of big collar, because he does have a long neck. That's just sort of necessary in this design. And we can even play around with something like that. So then we get sort of a overlapping shape with more angles. So we do like angles. I might even exaggerate this a bit. Ooh, yeah. Something like that. Erasing a little bit of the work we did before, but that's fine. And then having a sort of that. And then it's all sort of clumped up under. Again, we're sort of combining things here, but I want there to be some sort of like knot at the top. That is the sort of direction we're going for. Yeah. So there we go. Now you can draw it at home. You just make a squiggle like that, and then you just follow up the edge lines, and that creates the depth that we need. this sort of tight knot at the top. Lots of nice folds in it. That's what I'm looking for. Nice. And then in terms of other vests, we definitely need some sort of design on it. We're not just going to have a plain vest. Should his vest have pockets? Is it fancier with or without pockets? Ooh, I'm also liking... There's a sort of nice... There's a nice taper on some of these vests where it sort of cinches at the waist. That's very nice. Yeah, I like that. That looks right. Pockets. Let's try it and see how we like it. I mean, ultimately, you're really not going to notice the pocket that much. I suppose you could keep a watch in there. Or money. Or something. What is that called? Paisley? Paisley pattern? Yeah. That's sort of fancy looking. I'm just looking at patterns right now. Once I find one that looks close to what I'm looking for, I'll post an image. This is kind of nice. Let's take a look at this one. So, not the left two. But this guy is kind of nice. Not this color, because I'm going, in terms of colors, I'm kind of going for a red and black theme across some red, white, and black, but I do like, I don't know if I like the velvety part of it, but perhaps this, like a shiny red. I almost just want it to be monotone, just with pattern on it. So I think that would be better. these lines. I'm not sure what I was doing with those lines, but whatever it was, I'm changing my mind now. So we've got the end of the vest. I guess that would come in a little bit more. Trying to figure out the sort of rules to this. I'm seeing a lot of like this thing. This is something I should make a custom brush for. Maybe we'll do that later. Yeah, we'll do that later. I'll make a custom brush that does that pattern, because I don't feel like drawing that by hand all over. But we have the reference. Okay, the rest of the under is just going to be his button-up shirt, which will come out to here. We will see the seam of that right at the shoulder, since that is where it is supposed to be. If it's a little uneven, that's fine, as long as we get the idea across. And then coming down to here, I guess, how big are the cuffs on these old shirts? Are there any differences? Again, and some of these older photos, the sleeves are a little bit baggier than the kind of what we have today, but I want to have it slimmed a little bit. This is kind of nice. I will try this, having a little bit of a bump up here, and we'll make it more fitted, but we'll give it a little, just a little bump, because I think this will be fancier, and you'll see what I mean in a minute. But up here by the seam, I'm looking at a reference now that has these nice little creases going down. So there's, what that tells me is where they're attaching the sleeve to the shirt, there's actually more material on the sleeve than there is around the shirt. Slightly so, enough to get these fancy little creases. That's kind of nice. I am actually going to copy this into here. This is a really interesting reference. Wow, that's big. So this one has a really interesting shape that maybe we could play with this instead for the collar, where you could wear this collar down if you wanted. You know, you could fold the flaps down on the side and it would just go around the back like that, but you can also flip it up if you want to style that. And then this is the collared shirt up top. So you could wear the collared shirt popped up, or you could pop it down and around. That has really interesting layers. So maybe I will play... Let's play with that. Let's figure out how this works. Because then we can legitimately have just the pointiest triangles. For our flaps. And they come out quite far too. They actually come out. Ooh. Ooh, yeah. I think we found something. Hold on. This is a much more menacing shape. And that gives us options to vary up our villain's look based on, you know, how he's feeling that day. He's a little... He can be a bit dandy. And then the rest of this... So this would actually be wider as well. So when worn flat, it would come out like that and go around. That's so interesting. I almost feel like we need to change the way this is shaped. I don't like that it's squared. I think it needs to be triangled. Triangled. New word just dropped. Everybody must use triangle in a sentence today. Oh, yeah. I think that's what I want. Okay, anyway, back to back to shirts. I wasn't expecting to find a better vest design while we were looking at button-up shirts. It seems like the cuff size really hasn't changed that much, so I'm just gonna go with the sort of default cuff size here. Although there are... This is hard because there are different cuffs. How fancy do we want to get? He definitely needs the like cuff buttons. What are they called? I have some. I'm just blanking on the name. But something like that. Cufflinks. Duh. Yeah, because there's a couple ways you can wear cuff. I don't know. When did cufflinks go into fashion, though? Let's find out. When did cufflinks become popular? Although the first cufflinks appeared in the 1600s, they did not become common until the end of the 18th century. So that would have been 18th century would be the 1700s. So yeah, there would be cufflinks. Absolutely, there would. How to wear cufflinks. Because I know there's a bunch of different ways. I know you can do the, like, flat method. Where your cuff sort of bends around like that, and then the cufflink goes like here and through on the other side. That is a way to wear cufflinks. I think you can wear it more rounded. I don't know if that's a proper way to wear a cufflink or not. Or if I'm just crazy. Because, surprise, I don't wear cufflinks in my day-to-day. Maybe I should. Then I would know more about them. Different ways to wear cufflinks. Seems like the method I just drew is the French cuff? Maybe. Don't quote me. I'm not a fashion scientist. Oh, here we go. Again, illustrations of these things are fantastic. Yeah, I guess it more so depends on how the shirt is made. Let me pull up this reference. Let's learn about cufflinks, everybody. So these are different shirt types. So this one, you fold it back, and then the cufflink goes through all of the 4 holes in there. That seems complicated. Here it looks like you could wear it straight and then have 2 cufflinks, so 2 and 2, with it folded over itself, so it would be rounded. Here we have the cuff sort of coming around, overlapping, so not flat like that. Here is just the same thing as before. This would go folded up, the cufflink would go through there. Just different shapes of cuffs, which is nice to know that there are different shapes of cuffs. What would our villain have? It needs to be elevated, but also kind of utilitarian. I don't want it to get in the way. So, like, I don't really like this flat method of connecting it. But maybe this nice angled one. That's kind of neat. That's something I don't see every day. But I also do like this, like, double cuff. That's kind of nice as well. Let's try things. Let's just get in there and try things. I do like the idea of it having an angle to it like everything else he has. And then him having the cuff like right in there. That is nice. And then the split does continue up here. That's kind of nice. I don't mind that. I'm sure he also has multiple shirts and styles. So we don't have to commit to just one. That gives us some room to play with shapes later if we decide to change our mind. Yeah. Something like that. He is looking dapper, more and more dapper by the second. Okay, let's get into pants. What are the ways that pants are cut? There are so many different ways that pants are cut. I want more modern pants. I'm gonna go 1800s for pants. Yeah, a lot of these go kind of high up on the waist because they have the vest, so that the pants are snugly and secure underneath there. I like that. There are suspender pants, but I don't think he would have that necessarily. Maybe he would. I don't know. Let's learn about pants. This looks like more of a commoner's pants, but it's really interesting to compare pants then versus pants now, because you can see this has a pocket, but it is a pocket that buttons up on the front to the pants itself. So you've got your suspender holders, boom, 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 and then stuff in the back. And then you've got your front buttons that keep it closed in the front. But then you've got these things. So, like, I guess you would just be... Because, like, this is all sewn up. I'm assuming this is completely sewn up at the bottom. You'd be able to put stuff in your pocket from here, but you'd also be able to put stuff in your pocket from up top, which is really interesting. Again, I don't think this is the kind of pant he would wear. I'm looking for something fancy. But that's such an interesting difference. Alright, what are the upper class pants? I'm seeing some of these like double button pants where you've got like buttons kind of going down the sides, but I don't really like how that looks visually with everything else I've got going on. There's a lot of like old illustrations of men from this time period, but a lot of the times they're drawn with the coat on, but I need it drawn. I really need it drawn without the coat, because that's really important for me to understand how that works. Maybe Victorian men's pants? No, I'm getting the same deal. Maybe all pants were just like that. Well, we can try it. We can see how we like it. Yeah, because we could do something where maybe the button is like here. I guess he would have suspenders under this. Nah, this isn't making sense to me. I'm going to try and find an illustration of these pants, because that seems to have been the more useful reference. Yeah, I guess he wouldn't really have pockets on the pants. The pockets would have been... I guess your pockets are more so on your vest and if you need it, and then in your jacket. Because here's like a really simple pants. Oh, that is transparency. Fun. I don't know how well that'll show up on stream, but not at all. Cool. But you've got this sort of cross in the back, and then you've got your buttons in the front, and then this sort of like yeah, these buttons, which I guess you could attach to suspenders. But you have this like flap. You have this like open flap in the front. It's so weird. I don't really understand it. But it goes like something like this. And then I guess the button would just be hidden underneath. I guess it would just be something like that. This is really bothering me that I don't know exactly how these pants work. But I guess that is how it was. The thing, too, with this fantasy setting is there are other species uh, around, and some of them have tails. So you would have to have pants where the back of the pants, for some people, would connect like this one does, but then have a sort of like opening with a hem like that for the tail. And it would just be open like that. So then the tail would go down. Which is not the case for our guy here, but... And then you'd have like different sizes depending on the size of tail. Tailors have a very important job in Misery. One thing that I've thought about in terms of like where people buy clothes in this world is sort of there would be, I guess, sort of general sizes in the world. So you'd have tailors that are more for like the shorter, smaller folk, and then sort of your medium humanoid. Maybe with a couple people that specify in one thing, you know, a cat person. You go to the cat tailor, and then you have your sort of like giants and like I have elephant folk as well. So you're sort of like big and tall store. So it's really hard because to sort of mass manufacture clothing that would fit everyone for that reason. Because that was sort of the part of the industrial revolution was we were able to make clothes so much faster. And in predictable sizes. But that would be a lot harder in this case because of all of the different body shapes. So you could mass produce. Excuse me. You could mass produce clothing for that, but it would be very specific to sort of general categories. So it's definitely more of a need for tailors. Yeah, I'm just going to leave the pants alone for now. Because it is frustrating me. And then shoes. Who knows what shoes look like? Oh, those are fun. I think I might have just found the perfect boot for this guy. Look at that. That's like almost perfect. It even has that sort of like reddish look that I'm going for. And it's heeled, and it has a nice design to it because we can go up and around. Doing foreshortening with feet is an absolute nightmare. But you know what? We're gonna do it. We're gonna do it. And it's gonna be great. There we go. And then this would sort of start around there. That would come around the front. I do like the flat toe. And then this could also have that same sort of like fancy pattern to it. There would be some wrinkles in here for where the foot bends. And then, yeah, when we get to coloring this, we'll give it a little bit of shine. But I honestly don't mind that, and I'm pretty happy with the shape. Because we can keep it pointed. And I'm just going to cheat because I like how this boot turned out. We're just going to flip it. Beautiful. And then we'll just merge those together. Oh, never mind. What did I actually merge? Oh, I see. I understand. I drew on the wrong layer. Copy. Paste in place? Yes. Yeah, now I just have shoes separate. Let's Let's merge that. Perfect. We're back on track. I'm realizing now, I suppose the disadvantage of the pant silhouette, so a lot of the historical pants have more bagginess up top. And the sort of disadvantage of that is you don't get as much of the, I'm going to exaggerate it, you don't get as much of the pointed look where it goes and tapers down to the foot. Instead, you get sort of, instead you sort of get the Robbie Rotten look, where the pant like goes down and then kind of flares out a little bit at the calf. But that might be fine because I do. Robbie Rotten's costume design is honestly one of my favorite villain designs. I'll pull it up just so we have it on stream. There we go, Robbie Rotten costume. Oh, no, I don't want Google Shopping, I want Google Images, thank you. Yeah. Check this thing out. So this actually has a number of the, I guess, design principles from stuff we were looking at, but oh man, it's so good. But like they really exaggerate this shape going along the leg and then down. It's almost a bell bottom on him. It's very silly. But you do get that like calf definition. Oops. Come back. Come back, Robbie. And then his vest is shortened and his pants are heightened just to give him that exaggeration. So for him, his his like belt line. So on our guy, it's like here. On Robbie, it's like all the way up here, like basically right under the chest. But it's such a good silhouette, and he also has cufflinks. He's got the cuffs. He's got the French cuff. So his are actual like wings kind of sticking out. I don't want that for my guy. I want him to be more uptight. But the idea of that sort of like slim fit shape, I don't mind. I don't mind that at all. Anyway, there's my admiration section for Robbie Rotten. Let's move on to coats. I'm gonna do this on a different layer. Because I do want to be able to see the layers of everything. But I think this is coming together a lot better than what I was originally thinking. Because before when I was sketching this, I really didn't do any research whatsoever into the fashion and like coat design. But now we have an opportunity to do that. So looking at our coats here, I do like the sweepingness of that, but I do want these. I want these coattails. So what I need to do is look up how coattails work. Because I think the function of having this split coattail is so that you could ride a horse. Which again is if you were rich enough and had your own carriage with a staff or like a driver, you wouldn't need the coattails. So I suppose it would be technically more upper class to not have the coattails, but maybe not. Again, I'm not a fashion scientist. I just need to know how they work so that I can modify it to my needs. And then we also need to decide whether this is a coat that is designed to be buttoned up or one that is meant to be left open. I feel like because he leans into more of that utilitarian fashion, fashion with purpose, it should be able to button up if he needs it to. I don't think it needs to button all the way down, but I think it does need to stay on him. Okay, here's where I'm torn, because we get coats. I see a lot of coats like this in sort of like costume shop settings. Like when you Google like steampunk or like Victorian coats and like look at the things you can buy online, this is the kind of thing that I see, and that's the sort of shape that I like, but I don't know what it's based off of, because whenever I look up actual Victorian fashion, I don't see this. Like I don't see the shapes that this makes. And like from a costuming perspective, I do like this, and I do like this as a shape design, but in my world where I'm trying to be a bit more realistic, I don't know what this is based off of. And maybe I'm thinking too much about that. Maybe I don't need to be as realistic, but I've already put so much thought into everything else, you know? Because I don't want to base this off of a costume. I want to base this off of something that works. There are also, I suppose, overcoats, because there's the actual like suit jacket, but then there's like then there's like this stuff, uh, where you have a completely like your rain jacket that goes over top of everything else. There's so many layers. So we could even do another layer on top of this drawing that is his like like his raincoat or like winter coat that would go on top of that. I'm gonna put that guy out to the side because I like him. I don't know how accurate that one is, but it is fun. It's got a nice big collar. But yeah, for this first sort of layer, let's just get something down, and then we can talk about it. Because you would have a... And maybe it would make more sense to lighten this so we can see what we're doing. There we go. So let's just draw in the general jacket. General jacket shape. I guess it wouldn't go. Over that. It would go slightly before so you could see the layers. And so that you could move around. And again, you want to have it kind of cinched a little bit in the back. So that's kind of where that, it's kind of where this thing down here comes into play. So that you can adjust your coat to fit you, ideally. And you can hide the seam and make it look fancy. Yeah, because what I'm seeing here is we want this to sort of come out and down so that you can see the vest and you can see, you know, all the fancy things that you have. All the fancy layers. And this little triangle can even overlap and go in front. That would be fine. That's sort of part of it. And then the rest of it can be kind of tucked away. Because some of these come rather low, because like I've seen some that have sort of like if we're looking at buttons here, there's some that come like all the way down here. And then you sort of get the wings that come off of that. And then I think I like the coattails that like stop here above the knees. I think that makes sense. And then these absolutely have pockets. This is where your pockets live, not in your pants. I think that's probably why our pants today have pockets, because we ditched the suit jacket in modern wear. I almost want something like this. I think I might have had that reference on somewhere else. Where here we can see the buttons. Oh, can't see my pencil. There we go. Here we have the buttons. It's like this clearly can attach over. And then it has the superficial buttons so that it has a nice double-breasted. But there's only two. Because really the vest is the one doing the heavy lifting in terms of being fancy. Low-key, though, I actually could have this beard right now. I could trim my beard to be exactly that. That's kind of great. Because we've got that going on in the vest area. So maybe something like that. I do want some big cuffs, though. So again, I think we're going to have to blend. I think I'm going to be blending bits of sort of 1700s and 1800s. I don't mind this little. This is sort of the same thing we were seeing with the shirt. These little wrinkles up top. But maybe he wants to be more modern with the jacket. I think I like the more angular jacket. I do like the ruffles on the undershirt, though. I think that looks pretty slick. But maybe this is just a more open design, you know? So this will come down through here. And then we'll just have it sort of break away. Yeah. with buttons. Have sort of a nice big... I guess the collar isn't that big in the back. But I do like a big collar. I guess what did I do? What did I do before when I wanted the shape language? I did give this a big collar originally, and this like 1700s one also has this sort of collar to it. This one does not. This has sort of a... just a lapel. And this has a collar and a lapel. I think that's what I'm missing. I think I missed the collar. I missed the tallness of everything. Because then we can have... yeah, then we can have that. Because when he has the coat on, he needs to have that striking silhouette. When he has the coat off, he still needs to have that striking silhouette. And I think the coat off look is really working for me currently. You know what? I like how I drew it here. I'm just going to copy paste it. Ain't no shame in a copy paste flip. Because then this can go up to meet it. And we get a nice little shadow under there. Yeah. Are we breaking the rules a little bit? Maybe. This one also has a nice collar to it. Down at the bottom. It's just a straight layer. There's not a lot that do that like over flap. Because again, it comes back to that like ringmaster coat, that like costume Victorian type of coat. Oh, here we go, actually. Here's an 1800s coat that kind of does what I'm looking for. At least in the collar. And then, yes, it would have this coming down. Again, we're kind of winging it, but it would have a lapel here. A very exaggerated lapel, perhaps. I like this. Now we're getting a shape language going. And then this would have... sort of those buttons. These would probably be further apart. But yeah, you could button this if you wanted. We would have pockets, of course. You gotta have pockets on this thing. Wow, I did not draw that to the same scale whatsoever. Don't these lapels usually have like a little hole in them, like a little buttonhole for something? Maybe not. Okay, coattails. Let's figure out the coattails. I think I had... yeah, let's give them a little bit of a slimmer build. And then this thing... this thing kind of flares out. I don't know if we'll do it to that extreme by the end, but I just want to see what it will look like. And then this can be nice and tapered down. We've got the seam for that coming in. And we are going to have a cuff because I think this earlier fashion coat, I like the cuffs on that. So I'm going to keep it. And they're kind of larger. But that's fine. Just gives it a little bit more personality. It makes him a little bit more distinguishable from everyone else. He's sort of blending the fashion he's familiar with the modern. Modern being like 1880s. It's gotta have a design. You can't not have a design. Oh, there's so many. There's so many good ones. A lot of them have buttons along the edge, which is really fun. Some of them are really big and droopy too, which again is not really in line with what his more practical sense is looking for, but let's see. Ooh, yeah. Let's go with that. Okay, here's what I'm kind of seeing here. We are gonna do buttons. We're gonna be a little bit more practical with them. So they have a sort of like slit that they go into, which gives a nice texture along the length of this thing. And then we've got a nice little design there. But that gives us a nice shape. And then I'm assuming in the back it is sort of closed off. And we still get this nice little zigzag with the coat flaring out. So the pants aren't going to flare out, but we are going to have that. I'm going to have a red lining in this coat, so we'll have the black slacks highlighted by the red that will go on the liner. And that'll be nice. That gives us a sort of idea of where it's going. What are we thinking? Any notes? I think I'm pretty satisfied with the underclothing. I think that works quite well. I might go and put a line down the front of the pants, just a little hint of a crease there. And then his overcoat. We'll go on top of that. Giving him that sort of a silhouette. And then if I get his hair shape in there as well, you can really start to see the design I'm kind of going for, where we have all of these nice he's a crooked line. I think that's his visual motif, is that you have all of these. Do it in a different color so I can highlight it. He's got all of these crooked lines going all the way through, no matter where you follow. If you follow the outer, if you follow the inner. Yeah. I think that's our guy. Oh, I suppose I can erase these guys. Our little notes for how vests work. Okay, let's take a little break from that. And let's get into canes. Because this guy has a cane. I was playing with the sort of cane sword thing. There's a variant that has a cross guard, which I thought was extremely cool. And I really want to find a way to make that work if I can, where it like folds down into the design. Oh, I think that's just so cool. Although I don't know if his the like actual ergonomic curve of the handle would get in the way of that. But we'll see. Let's just make a new layer and get to drawing. So the important thing with cane swords is that the handle that you hold I guess the handle that you use the cane by and the handle that you use the sword by are two completely different sections. Which makes sense, because you can have it where it just has like the pommel at the end that you hold on to, and then you have this part. But if you need the cane to function as a cane, it really has to have this sort of shape to it at the end that is the most comfortable shape you can have, especially this curve up here, because that's where the palm of your hand goes. So really the best place to put any sort of like decoration would be at the very front of this other part, kind of where your thumb rests. While you can have sort of the pommel design with a nice decoration, you see those at like Halloween stores a lot if you're looking at canes and different designs. But the thing is, those things just aren't comfortable to put your weight on. It's like I really kind of have to take into consideration the functional use of this cane. because it has to fit him, you know? So with that in mind, oh, that's right, I put a little note for having a gargoyle as the front. I think that would be sick. And it would fit with Misery. There are gargoyles in Misery all over in the architecture, so it would be very fitting to do that. So I'm going to do this. I'm just going to make a line. And copy paste, and we can angle it ever so slightly. Even more slightly than that. I guess it does need to be thicker, huh? Because it has a because it has a sword inside. Something like that. So I basically just want to make a kind of a flat diagram version of this cane. Let's look at some historical canes. Yeah, again, seeing a lot of the curved handles. There's walking canes which are less for support and more so just to be fancy. If you do have to walk a long distance, it helps. But those are the ones that just have the pommel at the end, which is not what I want. Because this guy really needs to lean on his... What do the ends of them look like usually? Because when you image search canes, what they usually show you is the top and not usually the bottom. I would assume it's something similar to what's up there. Some kind of like metal end. What does the bottom of a cane look like? It just sort of sticks down. Yeah, it's just sort of wrapped metal. So that's what we'll do. And it usually has some sort of taper and then a sort of butted end at the bottom. And this one looks like it has a design on it. I'd probably, for our villain here, it would probably have a design. That would make sense to me. Even just a simple one. Sure. Something like that. Give it a little texture. So that'll be metal. It'll be at the very end. This is a modern one at the top, so it has that nice big rubber stopper at the big end, but Most of the historical canes I'm seeing just kind of come to a tip, or they might come to more of a, maybe a slightly wider knob at the end. And then up at the top, we can mirror what's going on down there. So this is where the sword will connect to the rest of the cane. Again, this one's got a nice intricate design. We can just do a shorthand version of that. I wonder if it would have any sort of mimicry of sort of the architecture. That could be fun. Something like that. Not really working with me. Just kind of winging it. We'll see how it turns out. We can always change it later. But something along those lines. Perhaps longer. Can I just copy paste this? Cool. That will be our end of Arcane. I guess the body. Then this part will connect inside. Whoa. Whoa. What is happening? What is happening? Holy cow. Photoshop. Please relax. But this part would connect in here. Guess nice and snug. Like that. The sword itself would be roughly about that wide. Tapering down all the way. I don't think the... because where does this line up on here? Yeah, that's about right. The end of that cane would actually, or the end of that sword would only come to about there on the actual thing, so I think that'll work. There's my measurements. They're not especially long swords, but they are useful because it's meant to be a one-handed weapon. It's meant to be a one-handed short sword. I need to turn smoothing on. Goodness. And then we can straighten this out. And that just goes straight through the middle of the blade, huh? Good enough. We'll deal with it. And the grip for this would be something like that. And then that's going to be the length of one hand. Roughly that. I am going to steal the little 3 grooves in the wood from this reference here, because I think that is a nice touch and it adds just a bit of texture to the handle. I guess it would be slightly rounded, huh? Because it's a sword handle. You'd want it to be just a little bit rounded. So this would actually taper into that a little bit more. So not quite as straight. And then that'll be whatever the wood color is. And then let's look at our handle references, not that one. Oh, right, the crossguard. Yeah, how do we want that to work? Let's do the handle first, and then we can go into crossguard shapes. I'm gonna trace this one just because I like the point that it has. But we will change the other end to have a gargoyle or something. Just because I want this ergonomic shape. Here's kind of a flattened end to it. Yeah, let's see what we can do with that. So I do like how that looks. And I think the shape of that is important. I almost want this to be like, to have like a metal point at the end. Because then it's like he has a talon. I don't know if it needs to be like sharpened per se. Give it a little design to it. Because then it's got like a practical use to it. He could climb things with that if he needed to, or hook somebody in combat. Okay, let's look at some gargoyle references. Traditional gargoyle. Yeah, there's sort of this like generic lion dragon ish thing. There's a lot of different variants. Some of them look like people, some of them look like little demons. We want a shape that is gonna be sort of kind of intimidating, but also a shape that is going to be still work with the flow of the handle. So I don't know if I want to have one that has horns, because the horns would poke back into your hand if it was at the end of the cane like that. They are quite silly though. Because here's some gargoyles to look at. That's kind of a nice shape. So we could do something kind of like that. Stick it on the end of the cane. So they've got this nice brow that I like. just realized I haven't been talking at all. But yeah, something like that. I like the beak. I think I'll rearrange some of the features here so that they make a little more sense. Because this really needs to come down. And then let's just take that head that we just made and see what it looks like here, and if we can turn that into something. So I would like to have like the little arms on it. I think that would be cool. I think I just need to get the liquefy tool going. Which you can't see on stream because I have it in a different window, but you'll see the changes once I do them. I just want to change the proportions of this a little bit. So I think it'll make the drawing better. Overall. Yeah, that looks better. I like that. We have our little gargoyle guy. We'll get some shading on him. And then the cane itself, we can, or I guess the sword part. This part itself, we can sort of connect. Up to it. Then he'll have his little shapes there. And I actually need to rotate my canvas. So that I can draw this properly, but There we go. Now it's a vertical. And then this thing can have, it needs arms of some kind. Like built into the design here. Man, I don't know how this is gonna work out. Maybe it doesn't need arms. Maybe it's fine with just the head. It might be fine, just as it is. Let's merge those together. I think I might bring the head back in a bit, because it's looking a little bit long. And we kind of just want this to be an end decoration. Yes. That looks better. That looks cool. Okay. Now now we're going to think about crossguard. What would that look like? Where's my reference for it? Yeah, this thing. Get that. Where's this other one? Okay. I like this reference. I do think it needs to go. I do think I need to draw this and see what it looks like on the sword. Call this layer crossguard. Because this is a cool, it's a cool shape. And it would most likely go here. It would go across there. It doesn't need to be an especially wide crossguard per se. I guess, which way is the blade oriented with? Because it looks like the blade is oriented in line with this handle. Like the way this is pointing is the way the blade is pointing, which would mean that the crossguard would have to go the same way. But in terms of like getting your hand in there, I feel like you'd want your grip to be the opposite. Because like if you had your, if your hand is here your wrist is there, and you're grabbing the sword, this is going to be a problem because it's going to poke in the way. But if you have your hand the opposite direction, then you've got a bit more room, and this actually acts as sort of like a this acts as sort of a cage almost to protect your hand. Because I think there would be a locking mechanism because I want it to be sturdy. And then this thing, I guess the profile, like if you were looking at this from the side, but if you're looking at it from here, it would be sort of like this almost. And then when it's closed, like these would meet up, and your blade would be inside of that. It's a very exaggerated version of it, but that's sort of what I picture. I don't know, is that just too complicated? This mechanism does work. I can see it working here. I think what would happen is this part of the blade would not be a blade. So your blade would actually be slightly shorter. I'm looking at other references now. Okay. I think this makes sense. And I think, yes, it looks like my theory on how it connects together is true. There would be a middle section here in the cane. So this is sort of where it connects. And then the actual sword would not be... It would not start being a sword until right about here. So I might need to lengthen the cane a bit, but he's a tall guy. And like the blade doesn't really need to be that thick per se. Yeah, this is not a force weapon. He's not strong. This is a finesse weapon. Yeah, because it would be like... It would start here. This fancy sword cane I'm looking at actually has a design in like this part. Like it's got like lettering across there. So maybe it has like some kind of magic in nature? I don't know. But yeah, that's sort of what I'm going for here. Okay, let's flip it back the other way. Turn on the cane. Yeah, we could extend the sword down a bit. That would be fine. I do want to keep the taper though. Go to about there. That should be fine. And that will be our weapon, I suppose. Let's see what this thing looks like. I wanna copy this into stages. So this, I guess I don't need to copy that. This just needs to go up to the top. Although I guess it will need to go down in the final stage as well. That's fine. We need the cane. Oop, not that part. We need the top of it to go up here and then fit into that, and we can erase the sword part of it. Okay, that we can merge. This is stage 1. I like that. And then stage 2 would be stage 2 would be it coming out of the thing. Stage 3 would be what this is down here with it fully open. So I need to copy this part to the middle. And I need to copy the cane part to the middle because I want to see it going out of this sheath. This would have the crossguard, but it would be fully collapsed, so it would be like this. It would have this little part to it. So all of this would be carved out. And then I'm just going to copy the crossguard. And just grab each side here. And just angle it to see what it would look like. Sort of half folded. Same to this guy. Just get that on there. This will be stage 2. And then the cane also goes with stage 2. This will fold out. So getting it back into the sword is a bit of a challenge, but at that point, you don't really need it to be quick. And stage 3. There is our cool weapon. And I think I'll end the stream here. I might come back to this at some point and color it. I think that would look nice. But I'm getting hungry. But for review, we have our outfit. I'll need to draw him in a nice pose with his cane at some point. We've got our shape language going on. We've got our lots of historical references, with some liberties taken for the fantasy genre, of course. But I think this is looking much more put together. It still lines up with what I kind of wanted from my initial sketches, but I think it's a lot more thought out and put together. And then we've got our cane. With a nice gargoyle at the end. And a functioning crossguard. It's a wild looking weapon, but very effective. Lots of uses. But thank you so much for joining me on the stream, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.